Well, hi. Thank you guys for coming back to the channel. Welcome if it's your first time visiting. I'm Megan, the faithful fibromyalgia warrior, and I'm so glad you decided to check out my content. Thank you. Thank you so much. I really appreciate all your support. I want to just start by saying, first of all, I share my life and my experiences because I'm hoping it can help someone else. I do not do this to get paid. I don't want to get paid. Oh, one of my dogs is trying to photobomb the back of the video. We have two now. We have a greyhound named Juno, who you may have seen in other videos. And we recently took in a spaniel because unfortunately his owner was no longer able to keep him just because of some extenuating circumstances in her life. And his name is Bertie. So you may hear him knocking his plastic ball around in the background. Anyways, yeah, I do this because I want to be able to help other people if I can. So that's why I make these videos. This is why I'm going to be live streaming April 23rd at 3 p.m. That's here in the UK. You'll have to work out the time changes for yourself if you live somewhere else. I know there's a few of you that live in the States. I know that there's at least one of you who lives in the Far East. There's somebody I just was able to chat with live stream the other day who lives in Thailand. So wherever you might be, you'll have to work out what 3 p.m. UK time is for you guys. Hopefully you can be there. But all this content is free. Like I say, I don't want it. It's not to make money in any sense. I don't want to. I don't want to get paid. I'm not going to do anything for advertising. I'm not trying to sell you any products of any kind. I've just found the best thing in life, and I'm happy to share with others. So if you have been here before, you know that I talk about not only being keto, but also being a faithful Christian and how my relationship with God has made a huge difference in my life, along with keto. And if you are visiting for the first time, well, then that's what you're going to hear from me. That's what you're going to hear me talk about keto and faith, because for me, the two go hand in hand and they're critically important. So what is keto? What is the ketogenic diet or lifestyle or protocol or whichever term you choose? I find the best way to explain it is from one of my favorite YouTubers, and her handle is Go Keto with Casey. Her name is Casey Durango, and this is how she explains it. Keep your total carbs to 20 grams per day or less. All right, total carbs, not net. Make sure that you are eating fatty sources of protein. So you do not need to add loads of extra fat, but just eat the animal products that come with the fat. So like streaky bacon, fatty sausages, lamb, fatty cuts of beef, the darker meat of poultry, or even fattier poultries like duck or turkey. Okay, just because the higher the fat content, the more satiated you're going to feel. Fat has 9 grams of energy. Yeah, 9 grams of energy. I think it's 9 calories of energy per gram, I think is how it works. Anyways, so when you eat healthy sources of saturated fats, which is basically animal kingdom products, and that can be seafood, it's just there's less of it, therefore you need to eat more. So if you want to eat in a way that you are satiated, you probably want to eat things like I just said, like bacon, sausages, ribs, even any kind of meat. Try not to eat it too lean because you want some of that healthy fat. That can be lamb, that could be venison, any sort of four-legged animal would fall into that category, but beef is probably the easiest to come by and probably the cheapest. That can include not just chickens, but eggs. obviously, not just duck, but eggs. But again, duck eggs are not easy to come by, typically. And more so the yolks, because that's where the proteins and everything are. So it's eating those things. Now, normally in the ketogenic diet, you don't necessarily count calories, but calories do count still, right? So not that you have to measure and work out exact calorie contents. If you start to try to listen to your body, to when it's hungry, when it is satiated, then it will take whatever amount it needs. And you don't have to worry about sort of a random number of calories. Okay, and everybody is different and everybody is different. I'm 49, I'll be 50 in August, and so the amount I eat now, or that I need to eat now to be nourished, to have energy, for my hair growth, for my skin, my nails, all of that is very different, say, from what I needed 21 years ago when my son, when I was pregnant with my older son. So those are things to keep in mind as well. There is no one-size-fits-all way of doing it in the ketogenic diet. And I understand it may not apply to everyone. It may not be recommended for everybody. But overall, generally speaking, eating a low carb and meats with saturated fats that are a part of them, like I said, like ground beef or steak, pork, be it pork chops or sausages or bacon, some lamb cuts, those things are all very good for you. It used to be said if you ate too much red meat, it would hurt your kidneys. In fact, it's not the case. That information was incorrect. It was not the meat causing the issues. It was all of the other carbohydrates and sugars that were also being consumed that were actually causing the liver to go into distress and the kidneys to start to dysfunction. So it's not the red meat that caused the problem. As Go Keto with Casey has said before, and there may be others who have said it, but don't blame the butter for what the bread has done. Because it's not the butter that's the issue. It's the carbs in the bread that have caused us all so many problems. It's why when you go keto and you cut out carbs and you reduce or get rid of starches in your diet, and I don't mean just processed stuff, I mean vegetables, fruits, all of it. When you cut that out, for the first anywhere from 3 days to 3 weeks, you might feel slightly nauseous and have a headache and feel foggy and exhausted. It is withdrawal from all the carbs and sugars in the body. It is basically like or similar to what people feel like when they are dope sick, right? If they're addicted to substances and they quit them, they have withdrawals. And the same thing goes with carbs and sugars. So that will happen. But, as my husband pointed out, because he's going through this process, he's just starting that process now, is, wow, think about if our bodies go through that much withdrawal just after a few days of not having starches and carbs. Isn't it crazy how addictive and how bad all these foods are for us? And yet we keep eating them because we know when we stop, that feeling, that horrible sick feeling, it's kind of like, well, if that's because I haven't had sugar today or any carbs, well, then I'm going to have that so I don't feel like this. And, obviously he's pushing through it and he's taking it day by day, moment by moment, but that's what it can be like. And that's hard. That's a tough thing. So, I just wanted to say to those of you who are just watching for the first time, I don't want to just make it seem like, oh, it's so easy. You just decide, I'm not going to have carbs or sugar ever again. And then that's it. You just magically, in ketosis, your body's burning fat for fuel, and that's it. Ta-da, you're sorted. No, It will take some time. Your body will have to adjust. And the older we are, obviously, the more crap has been in our bodies, the more we're going to feel the withdrawal when we cut it out. I would just say this. It is so worth it when you work through the first, I don't know, let's say a couple of weeks. It will start to improve, and then eventually you will stop feeling like that. And it is so worth it. The freedom of having this constant craving for sugar and carbs. You know, for me, it used to be when I was still working. Every day at 3 o'clock, somebody would always bring in like a tin of biscuits or muffins or something. Somebody would bring something into the office, and at 3 o'clock every day, without fail, I had a sugar crash. And I couldn't understand why. I had to have something sweet and a cup of coffee. And it's only now that I realize why. Because my body was so addicted to the sugar and the carbs that even after I'd had lunch, a couple hours later, I was just like, I was desperate and I needed, it wasn't that I want this, it was I must have sugar and carbs. I must balance myself out. Now, having been able to finally cut them out of my system, it is worth it. So please, if you're just starting this journey, if you're considering this journey, yes, the first couple of weeks will be a challenge, especially if you're older. Like I say, the longer we've been alive, the more years we've had to put crap into our bodies. And the more withdrawal we feel when we cut off the crap. But it is worth it, okay? It is worth it. Just to quickly recap my journey with keto, well, at the end of May 2020, here in England, we had our first easing of lockdown restrictions. And I was weighing in at 180 pounds. I'm only 5'5". That's a huge, vast amount of weight. That's like 60 pounds more than I should have been carrying on my body at that point, okay? And that was all from what I was eating. I wasn't eating lots, but I was eating all the wrong kinds of foods, like toast 2 or 3 times a day with peanut butter and jam, bananas, loads of apples and grapes, things I thought were healthy, and they weren't. So my joints were inflamed because of all the sugars. I was carrying on massive water weight as well as actual fat around my midsection. My IBS was out of control, and I was bloated all the time. And my face was all puffy. And of course, even though I had been told I had hypothyroidism a couple months before that, you know, underactive thyroid, the medication wasn't helping because I was never told what I should eat specifically. Just make sure you keep your fruit to 1 or 2 servings a day, and, you know, you're going to have to probably cut out or cut down on sugars and sweets. But that was it.
Hey, Mom. Mom.
Hi guys, sorry about that. Minor interruption from one of my children. So yeah, I was carrying all this weight and inflammation and horrible pain. All of my conditions were at their absolute worst. You know, my IBS was horrible, bloating, gassy, well, same sort of, not quite the same, sometimes similar, bloating and gassy, constipated painfully. My leaky gut was out of control, so I had all my food sensitivities were off the charts. I had constantly dry, itchy skin. My hair was like breaking apart like all the time, and I was uncomfortable. My joints hurt. I was carrying all this extra weight, and my lower back was worse. You know, my spinal disc injury felt aggravated. Everything felt worse, and I was unhappy. And coming from a background of bulimia and severe anxiety, which would have often triggered it, I just felt so horrible in my body. I was feeling so awful carrying this extra weight, and I didn't know what to do. I couldn't exercise because of my fibromyalgia. And And obviously, I was determined not to binge and purge, which had been my old pattern, because I knew it probably wouldn't work, and I didn't want to go down that path again. And I tell you what, the Holy Spirit was definitely working in my life, because when I thought to myself, let me see what I can find on YouTube. And of course, it brought me to all these different videos on the ketogenic diet. Also, time of day eating and intermittent fasting. And you know what? For some people, that worked great. For me, I try to keep to the basics. And it's this: eating fatty sources of, or eating animal sources of protein with saturated, that come with fat, like I mentioned already. Yeah. And on top of that, keeping my total carbs to 20 grams or less per day. I realized that as much as I love vegetables and fruit, I had to cut fruit out completely. One, because of the sugar content. My liver was in distress at that point. I couldn't have it, period. And it was causing a lot of issues for my leaky gut and IBS. And with the vegetables, I realized as much as I love them, my body does not love them back. I could not process or digest them at all. So I had to cut those out. I already knew I couldn't handle seeds or grains or cereals or pulses or any of those things, which, by the way, were never intended for human consumption. Those were things that were grown to feed a livestock, because they all have more than one stomach. So they have this process where they can eat that stuff, and then it gets converted before it gets put through their system. So when we eat like red meat or, like when we eat beef or lamb or pork even, it's not like we're eating those grains, because they've already been processed through their stomachs, if that makes sense, right? So as soon as I started eating the ketogenic protocol, and one of the other things that stood out to me as well, because I always thought it was a high-fat diet, and then when I watched some of these videos, I realized it's not that it's a high-fat diet, it's that it's a very low-carb diet. In fact, I don't even want to say diet, it's a lifestyle. It's keeping carbs to a minimum forever, not just, I'll try it for a month, see how it goes. I needed something radical and different. And it worked. It was amazing, because I realized I don't need all these different things. Like, you don't actually require carbs for your body to function, which is crazy, but it's true. You don't actually need them. You do require saturated fats and proteins, because that's where amino acids come from. And our bodies cannot make those on their own. So we require those things. If you like vegetables and you can tolerate them, then following a ketogenic lifestyle, you can have non-starchy vegetables in limited amounts, maybe like 2 handfuls per day, right? You'd have to work out what the carbs were, because each of them has different carb levels, and if it's within 20 grams or less, go for it. But all those non-starchy vegetables all happen to be vegetables that I can't eat because of my IBS. So I cut them out. And honestly, I don't miss them. I don't. There's a lot of things I couldn't have anyways. Can't do gluten or soy or hot spicy things or whatever. I can't do them. Never could. So for me, it wasn't a big loss. It wasn't. I think the hardest thing was at the beginning, my husband and I already decided that we were no longer going to have any sugar in our coffee. And I learned how to drink coffee with just almond milk and no sugar. Now, let me say, the almond milk I buy has specifically no added sugars, has no sugar at all. So when it's processed, so they soak all these almonds and like for 3 days, and the liquid that forms, that's the almond milk, okay? There's 0 carbs, 0 sugar in them, because again, lactose intolerant. I'm okay with a little bit of butter every now and again, and even a little bit of cheese every once in a while, like on top of a burger patty. But I don't eat it regularly, just because I can't. So if you can tolerate dairy, you can have it. Not in unlimited amounts, because there are carbs in dairy. You can have some, like maybe a couple of tablespoons of cream in your coffee, or a couple of tablespoons of sour cream with your steak or whatever you're cooking, or perhaps a couple of tablespoons of mayonnaise, which is a lot of mayonnaise actually. So maybe a tablespoon of mayonnaise, right? But obviously not all those things at once on the same day, So it's really straightforward. And what I've realized is anybody who tries to tell you that you need to buy supplements or powders or pills or shakes or meal plans, don't believe it. You don't. You can buy everything you need in your regular grocery store with your regular shopping. That's it. And you can be 100% successful. Now, I will admit, in the very beginning, I was following somebody who talked about putting collagen powder in her coffee. And the reason why is because it gave her an extra kick of energy, and it also helped fill her up in between meals. And so I found one with the collagen that came from, I think it was from buffalo in Argentina, and I bought one container of it. And in the beginning, it did help me, because it helped me go longer between meals as my body was adjusting, and it gave me an extra kick of energy. And so for that reason, it worked. And I'm not going to say don't do it, because I did it. But when the container was full, I didn't buy more, because by that point, my body was already adjusted and fat adapted. And honestly, everything you need can be found in your food, right? Some people say you should only eat one meal a day. Some people say 2. Some people say 3, but don't snack. Everyone's different. What I do is I eat 2 times a day, right? I try to eat in the morning, so have a breakfast, and then I'll have an early dinner. Say I try to eat between 5 and 5:30, so that my body can digest the food, so that when I'm sleeping, it's not spending all of its energy trying to digest food. It's actually working to repair my body, and that's when you find autophagy, which that's what everyone's hoping for. Okay, so that's why it's recommended we don't eat late at night if we can avoid it, because then our body spends a lot of time at night burning, taking energy to digest the food, and instead of focusing the energy on healing and repairing. And that's why oftentimes it's harder to fall asleep, because our body's trying to digest the food. So it's still working. It's not resting yet. One of the things I try to do, and it's something I learned from Carnivore Yogi on YouTube, is while I don't get up at sunrise on purpose, oftentimes, because that's around 4 in the morning-ish, sometimes I get up at that point because the dogs need to go out, and I'll look out the window, and it's great. If the few times it's happened naturally, it's been wonderful. I've looked up, looked out the window, looked at the sun coming out, and it's been fantastic. And what I've learned through her videos, definitely check her out, by the way, is that our eyes register the sunbeams. I think it's the red light that is emitted all year round. And what it does is it sends signals to our brains. We don't need to produce melatonin anymore. The sun's coming out. Therefore, it's time to wake up. And I know it sounds crazy, but it is so true. It actually gives a burst of energy. And what it does is it helps your body to switch from sleep mode, where you're producing melatonin, to wake mode, where your body's now ready, right, to give you energy and help you burn calories and go through your day. So it's great. I don't get up at sunrise typically, but I am always up typically between 6 and 7, just automatically. That's just my internal clock is being reset. And when I do get up, I feel awake. I feel alive. It's fantastic. I open up our back door. I step out in the backyard. I look up at the sky, and if the sun's out, I look up at the sun with my eyes closed because I don't want to go blind. I'm blind enough. And other than the last couple of mornings when it was like 0 degrees or 2 degrees, I still stepped outside to look at the sky. But typically, I go outside for a few minutes and I'll take my slippers off. I will stand outside on the grass in my bare feet. And I do what she calls grounding. And you got to check out her videos. There's no way I can explain it properly. There's a whole science behind it, but our bodies are filled with electrons and neutrons and I want to say Optimus Prime, that's not right. But the electrons, because we have so much water fluid in our bodies, when we step on the ground, that charges the water in our bodies and it gives us energy and helps wake us up. And it's true. And so daily, what I do is when I get up, again, my body just naturally seems to wake up around 7. I get up, let the dogs out, go to the bathroom, and then when I open the door to let them back in, I go out and I step out in the backyard in my bare feet, whilst in my PJs with my robe on, and I just look up to the sun or where I think the sun is going to be if there's clouds. And it's great. It's peaceful, it's quiet, and I actually take a couple of minutes and I just meditate and pray to God and thank Him for all the blessings in my life. And then I come back inside and I'll have to make myself a cup of coffee. Not for the energy, because I feel at that point, I honestly feel so wide awake. I love the taste. And I'll sit down and I'll, journal, write letters to God and, study the scriptures and just draw closer to Him. And that's what I do now. And again, as we go outside and we try to get as much daylight as possible, that helps tell our body, oh, okay, it's still daytime, sun's out, still need energy. And then if I'm lucky enough to look out when the sun is setting, then that signals to the brain, oh, sun is set, time to start shutting down the energy stores and getting ready for the melatonin to be produced. And a good night's sleep is so important. And as much as I know that, and as a mom, as much as I've said that to my kids when they were little, I didn't really realize how true that was until now. And so the reason I share that is because even if you get the food right, and honestly, it's so simple. It's almost impossible to get the food wrong, right? Eliminate your carbs. What I did, I cut out all carbs and all starches, period. And I eat only animal kingdom sources of healthy fats. In other words, meat sources that have the fat come with them. So streaky bacon, fatty minced beef, egg yolks. That's what I eat typically every day. A little bit of salt and sometimes a little bit of mayonnaise and a bit of barbecue sauce. Sometimes nothing on top at all, but sometimes yes. And occasionally, a bit of butter. So if my husband has been cooking eggs in the frying pan, I don't wash it out because I'm going to use it right after him. So there's a bit of butter, butter grease in the frying pan. Fantastic. Adds to the food, adds a bit of taste. I eat that as well. Or some nights we might do lamb chops, or occasionally I'll have sausage, or we might order shawarma, and I just don't eat the wrap. I eat the mixed meat inside. Same with kebabs. I don't eat the meat. I don't have any salad or topping on it. I just have the meat for an occasional special treat, Or sometimes if we're at a restaurant, I might get like an extra big burger or, something like that. But typically what I make myself is fatty ground beef, egg yolks, a bit of salt, and streaky bacon, all done on the frying pan, put it on a plate, and eat it with a bit of mayonnaise. And that's what I have. Typically, I try to eat food in the morning within the first 2 hours of being awake. And that honestly keeps me going until around 5 o'clock. And that's when I start making dinner. And even if, people want to eat later or save their food, I try to eat, between 5 and 6 while the sun is still out. And the reason being is that at this point, the sun's still out. As far as the signals through my eyes are going to my brain, it's telling my brain, hey, it's still daylight. Make sure you're still, burning up fuel and digesting any food in there because she needs the energy still. That's why. Like I say, definitely check out Carnivore Yogi, Sarah Kleiner on YouTube. She's got loads of videos about this, but it's true. It's really true. And the reason I have to say, so that's my routine. So I'll get up, like I said, I get up, let the dogs out, go to the bathroom typically, let the dogs back in, and then I go step out in the backyard and I'll stand on the grass. We have a little big grass area, but I'll take off my slippers, step up to the grass, stand there in my bare feet for a couple of minutes and just, close my eyes and I'll tip my head up to the sun or up to where I think the sun might be. Just because we don't see the sun doesn't mean it's not sending out its healing red light. It is, right? So that's what I do on every morning. And also what I try to do, what I've discovered is that I can no longer tolerate really hot showers. I used to, but what I found is that it's the main cause of my dry skin and the itchiness I get along my sides. So I've actually been starting to take lukewarm showers or semi-cold showers. And actually, even though I end up with goosebumps, it helps build up energy because it forces my body to start burning. It forces your body to start burning fat to heat itself. So, I don't have a place to do a cold plunge. Again, check out Sarah Kleiner's videos for that. So I have a specialty shower chair that I sit in, that goes over the tub because I need back support because of my back injury and my fibromyalgia. And I will typically start the shower off nice and warm, and then I gradually drop down the heat, turn up the cold. And stay in there. Even when I start to get goosebumps everywhere, I just stay in. Make sure I'm in there for at least 5 to 10 minutes every day. And it works. So far it's working. That's what I do. Doesn't mean you need to do it, but that's what I do. And actually, it is helping me to be adapted to the colder weather. So even though I have Raynaud's, it's kind of like I'm forcing my fingers and toes to adjust so that even if they get cold when it actually is cold, as opposed to when it's still warm out. You know what I mean? So that's been actually really helpful that way. But sorry, I've gone off on a whole bunch of tangents, but I really wanted to share all this with you guys. And the thing that's mattered the most to me is talking about being keto and the faith I have. My faith in an amazing God who is powerful and fantastic and loves me. And some people say to me, well, don't you pray for all of your medical issues to disappear? And the answer to that is no, because it's God's will. And I know He wants to use me to help other people. And if I didn't have Raynaud's and fibromyalgia and anxiety and depression and IBS and leaky gut and, also recovery from bulimia, how in the world would I be able to help other people? How could I help if if I'm not going through these things myself? And, the thing I always want to point out is being keto has helped me greatly. But the biggest thing it did, as far as the fibromyalgia is concerned, well, there's two things, okay? So because it helped me lose 60 pounds, obviously that took stress off my joints. So my arthritis, although it still flares up, is not nearly as bad. It's a lot more manageable. So that's one thing, okay? So I don't feel, my whole body doesn't feel swollen and achy and in pain all the time. I'm still in pain. I'm hurting right now. It's just, it's at a tolerable level as opposed to the acute pain that I was feeling all the time. I actually sleep at night, and I sleep pretty soundly, and that wasn't always the case. So my medications are actually helping. So that's one big thing. But the other big thing, and those of you with fibro will know all about this, is that my brain fog used to be unbelievable. I could barely remember what I had at lunch one day. Never mind what I did the week before, but because my brain fog has lifted almost fully, I'm able to actually walk closely with God and be inspired and remember the scriptures I've read and studied. And so I was restored back to my faith that I had beforehand when I was first a young Christian, all the way back in 1993. I never left him fully, but I certainly didn't make him a priority. And when I was going through all of those different challenges, looking back, I wish I had, but I needed to go through what I did to get to where I am. So for that, I'm grateful. But I will say, it's not going to fix everything in your life. Just because we're Christians doesn't mean we will not face trials. In fact, Jesus promised that we will. But I tell you what, being keto and having faith in God has made it so much easier to trust in God and that there's a better plan. So I hope this has been helpful. I hope that you'll find that this can be somehow encouraging to you, or somebody that you know who might need to hear it. I really hope that it is. Again, thank you so much for watching the video all the way to the end. I appreciate that. Thank you so much for your support. If you haven't subscribed, I hope you do. And that, we can be a support to each other. The more the merrier. Please share this with anybody you think will help. And don't forget, please bookmark it in your calendars. April 23rd at 3 p.m. I'm going to be doing a live stream, so I hope you guys are able to join me. Until the next video, thank you so much, guys, for everything. Love you, and I will see you then. Bye.